introducing about your company's its services and its operation in Indonesia.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Bar. Look, I've prepared. I've just had a glorious week away in Bali and in Jogja.
Oh, good, very good of
through,
you.
Borobudur.
Now I'm jealous.
Oh, that was such a great experience. Excuse me, Pa. Novi, could you turn it down? Because I'm just getting a lot of feedback. Great, thank you. Hopefully that's better. Yeah, so I've had a script prepared while I've been away. So please excuse me, I'll refer to it a fair bit just to make sure that I'm saying the right things, okay?
Okay, no problem.
Basically, yep. RPM Global is a global industry leader in the provision of mining technology and consulting and advisory services. We have around a 50-year history in providing consulting advisory services, and actually 2019 was our 50th anniversary. So we've been around for a while. We really have a mission to transform existing mining operations and to try to deliver operational excellence, and that's through our software platforms. We do develop quite a few ranges of software, which I'll go through in a little while, and also through our consulting experience, and there where we have about 400 prominent consultants throughout the world in mainly in geology and mining, but also in support areas like infrastructure processing, etc. So we have we generally select a lot of guys that are pretty old. They're well into the prime of their career, and we have a smaller number of younger guys coming through who do a lot of the base design work under review. We'd like to have quite a few graduates, and we're always trying to grow and promote. But a lot of our people are highly expertise professionals. And look, our desire is just to have a strong and successful mining industry. But clearly, my desire is to have a strong and successful Indonesian mining industry. In Indonesia, we have an office located in Bintaro. We've been here in various shapes, and I'll go briefly into our history in a minute, but for about over 10 years. We have about 17 employees in the Bintaro office. We have a total of 8 geologists and mining engineers who are coal-oriented, and we have 1 metals geologist and 1 metals mining engineer. That metals mining engineer is me. So we are largely coal, but we are looking at growing our metals business, and we do in Indonesia growing our metals business, but we do a lot of metals throughout the world. We started off as Monaco Mine Consult, and that was purchased by Rungi Pty Ltd and became PT Rungi Indonesia. And then in 2013, that was transformed into PT Rungi Bangkok Monaco. And more recently, and that's still our operating label now, but globally we've transformed into RPM Global. So we will transform the company here into PT RPM Global at some point in the near future.
So you're formally Rungi Indonesia?
We are Rungi. Everyone calls us Rungi, and we're trying to drop that label. It's been so successful. We're trying to get people thinking RPM Global, but everyone thinks Rungi. And if they're thinking Rungi, that's okay. I mean, it's a very strong label.
I think
in
it's
this
a very
country.
strong brand here in Indonesia.
Yes, yeah. But internationally, we've moved over the last 2 or 3 years to rebadge ourselves as RPM Global, as one word, and that's what we're trying to do. But as I said, it's not that big a deal. If clients remember me as Rungi and they say we're going to come back and we want you to do our job, Mr. Rungi, I'll say thank you very much. It's all good.
Of course, yeah.
It's all good. So in 2014, we received the IUJP license from the government, and so we were one of the first authorised groups to be able to supply geology mining consultancy services in Indonesia. So we are registered to provide services under the laws and regulations of the Indonesian government. So we can do that, as quite a lot of our competitors can do that as well. Those based in Jakarta and in country generally can provide those services legally. What we sort of do is we have just having a look here, we've got 25 worldwide offices. So we've got about 6 offices in Australia. We've got 1 in South Africa. We've got an office in Beijing, Hong Kong, of course, our office here in Jakarta, an office in Mongolia, Turkey, Kazakhstan, Singapore. A couple in North America, in the US, 4 in Canada, and a couple spanning, one in Chile, 1 in Colombia. So we have people all around the world in key mining centres. And what we do is we connect those people together for specific jobs. So when our offices don't compete, our offices are supportive of each other. And so if we've got a big metals job or a big coal job, we're able to look at, with availability of our people, we're able to look at who's the best person to be on that job. And we combine our teams on that basis. And, I'm doing a job in Russia for an iron ore mine, managing that from time to time at the moment, and I'm working with colleagues in Perth, I'm working for colleagues in Moscow, Beijing, Denver, Toronto, Sydney, and we just we're used to using remote systems, which helps us in COVID actually, helps us a little bit in COVID. But what we do from a coal perspective here is our main coal offices is our head office in Brisbane. And also we have an office in Maitland, which in New South Wales, which supports the Hunter Valley. And of course we have our office here in Jakarta. So our teams of geologists and mining engineers are supportive and complementary. So we might get some overflow work from Australia. Australia might get some overflow work from us. We're keeping our standards common, and we're trying to interact with our teams. We're not interested in a Jakarta outpost. We want it to be RPM Global, and we want our people to interact so that we can keep standards of systems and processes, and also just so we're a family rather than just being left out there. In a metal sense, we're supported here through our Perth office and through our Sydney office mainly.
So where is your headquarters, Tim?
Our headquarters is in Brisbane.
Brisbane. Are you listed in the Australia Stock Exchange? No.
Sorry.
Are you listed with the Australia?
Yes. No. We're in the top 500 ASX listed companies. Yeah. So we are a listed company. Our roots are with consulting and advisory, but we are now very much considered on the ASX as a software company.
Okay, so
that's where the majority of our revenue comes.
Mining software company.
Yes, with a 50-year experience consulting and advisory support service. Plus, we do some training as well.
Do you have your revenue data on top of your head, like last year's?
Oh no, I should do, shouldn't I? But no, I don't. I'm sorry, but we can get that to you. Yeah.
Yep.
So basically, our 3 services that we provide are consulting and advisory services, technology and software services, and thirdly, training services. Our consulting advisory is made up of project mining services, where we're looking at operational efficiencies, productivity improvements, resource recovery, trying to provide optimal value of extraction from the resource. Our investor services are really trying to provide certainty in the technical and economic aspects of an asset to underpin a financial transaction, which might be, that might be for the client, or it might be for the bank or lender. It can be a number of different aspects. And then in operational services we provide are really looking at step change improvements to increase project value, and that's generally done through our software, lowering costs, and trying to increase mine life, etc. You know, as I said, we have those offices are in key mining regions around the world. We collaborate with mining companies, with with banks and financiers. We've delivered, 14 or so thousand studies worldwide over the years, of all sorts of studies, from resource reserves, pre-feasibility studies, feasibility studies. We believe, we have a very strong understanding and very good relationships with our clients and with banks. But particularly with the mining project services, our main areas of expertise are in geology and exploration assistance and support, particularly trying to plan and help clients plan their resource drilling needs with surety that it will convert into the required level of resource typically under a JORC code, or it may be KCMI. We do lots of mining studies, PFS mainly because that's to support the ore reserve reporting that we do. We do a few feasibility studies, but most clients are interested in a solid PFS level of study. We look at operational scenario analysis, business improvement processes, and technical site support. In terms of investor services, we're into mergers and acquisitions, being the lender's engineer, IPOs and capital market transactions, supporting those, asset analysis and ranking, and also just joint venture and investors' technical representations. And typically with operating services, it's really just trying to collaborate with mining companies to increase productivity, lower costs, just make those sorts of step changes of improvements. And that's pretty much where we are with our consulting and advisory. In terms of our technology and software, we run quite a few different software suites. We have XPAC Solutions, which is commodity-based scheduling, which is sort of mid to long-term planning, and we have versions of that for open cut coal, for steeply dipping seams that are very prominent up here in Indonesia. We have an open pit metal solution, which is specifically for metals. We have diamond solutions. We have all these sorts of things. We run Execute, which is a short-term planning software, which really takes that short-term plan and actually allows you to monitor it operationally. We run HaulSim, which is like a truck simulation package. Xeris, which is financial modelling. AMT, which is asset management, which is something that we purchased some years ago and is very strong in this country and others, looking at asset management and does online budgeting and really helps strategize the best maintenance approach for your mining fleet or fixed assets. And we have a thing called MinView, which is really like a data intelligence platform, and it just allows other software from both ourselves, RPM and non-RPM vendors, and just allows them to be brought together so they all talk, and that way it allows companies to be able to get all their data and make meaningful business decisions. Our software is really what we're about. Our consulting and advisory teams using expertise and using that software to develop solutions for clients. And the third part of the triangle for us is we do training as well. So we've been around for 40 years training. We've trained over 10,000 people in a thing called Miners for Non-Miners, which is largely it's largely like accountants and lawyers and people probably more situated in head offices of mining companies who have learned a bit about mining, but they don't have the benefit of, or maybe they're lucky that they don't have the benefit of being stuck on the side. So they're not quite as close to the actual face, the mining face, as those professionals that have trained specifically in geology or mining engineering, etc. So mining for non-miners is about taking those personnel that don't have a direct mining background and providing them with a good overview of the aspects of mining. So, you know, we do training such as that. We do public classroom training. We do e-learning training, or we just basically get asked by a client to deliver a specific tailored training program in mining. We do that basically in looking at economics, looking at mine planning, asset management, and this mining for non-miners, but also providing training programs for our mining software as well. So we do support our software from a training perspective as well. And that probably gives you a bit of an overview of who we are. You know, we are Indonesian based. We have a foothold here. We've been here for about 12 or 13 years, and we're supported by, you know, an Australian mining company, Australian listed mining company, but with offices throughout the world. So we do have a breadth of experience in our team, in the advisory team, and we can call on that to support who we are up in Indonesia. And similarly, our overseas offices can call on our support as well.
Okay, can you mention your clients in Indonesia, Tim?
Yeah, no, we have a lot of clients, but some of our stronger clients who come back for a lot of repeat work are clients like Adaro, Wine Resources, Aneka Tambang, Bumi Resources, PMCR, Parametra Coal Resources, Kitiko, Brow, and you know we've done a lot of work with Trakindo over the years, particularly with AMT. They've been fundamental to the success of that program. And we've recently, and we'll talk about a little bit later, we've recently won a job with Petromindo using our software packages to
what company? Petromindo?
Petromindo, yeah, mining contractors, yeah. Petromindo and a lot of the mining contractors now are getting really savvy. You know, they're extremely digitally savvy. They have lots of integrated systems, and they're really looking at ways to drive the cost down, and to really get their planning and scheduling really tight and reliable, and helping to drive their costs down so they can go in with lower bids, lower tenders, and win without sacrificing the financial stability of the company. So we're working with Petromindo to help them through our software to get more innovative and to drive their costs down.
So this is the area that I'm interested the most, especially in the middle of pandemic situation and the declining price of commodities, especially in coal. Yes. How do you think coal miners in Indonesia will survive in terms of their ability to adapt with the declining coal price, Tim?
Well, firstly, I'm hoping, Pa, that the declining coal price isn't a long spiraling airplane plummeting to the ground in a slow trajectory. I'm hoping that it's cyclical, and I know that the world, coal is a dirty word. There's a lot of financial institutions just not investing in coal. And I spoke to one group some time ago, and they said, Tim, we're not interested in investing in thermal coal. And I said, well, that's fine. There's some fantastic metallurgical coal resources in Indonesia as well. And they said, well, we're not interested in coal. And I said, but that's underlies, with iron ore, that's underlining your future construction and development. I mean, it's needed. But they don't see that. They just see thermal coal. They see power stations, and that lack of popularity. So look, there's no doubt there's an environment out there where coal is not like shining like gold. It's dirty. It's not popular, and there's a lot of political pressure, rightly or wrongly, and people get on the back of that bandwagon. There's also low oil prices, gas prices. It's very much in a lot of competition. I think I think the good thing for Indonesian companies is that the government has invested a lot in power stations. It's invested in those in making sure that coal miners, are there, and I think it's got, there's jobs at stake. Obviously, there's well-being at stake. There's development of the country, and it's very hard to change the direction of a big ship very sharply. So I think that, in Indonesia, I think that coal is here to stay. I think the government supports coal, very generally it does support coal. There's a few issues in permitting, things like that, that maybe, some people in some correspondence with the government might have some frustration. But overall, this is a coal mining country, and there's lots of reserves, there's lots of jobs, there's lots of desire, I think, for it to remain so. So I think that it's got that support, but I really believe that coal mining companies today need to keep their costs down. They need to be smart. They need to be efficient. They need to look at ways of improving productivity, decrease prices. And the strong companies have got to be able to operate regardless of what the price is. And I know a lot for a lot of companies that's very, very difficult. So I'm hoping that in time the coal price will rebound a little bit, but I suppose we will see. Our job, Alex, is to try to help companies reduce the bottom line, get efficiencies up through our knowledge and combined linking of that with our software technology, so that we can, maybe help the mining contractor reduce that truck using our simulation packages and look at smart ways where they can start cutting out dollars. Because rarely in these things do you find there's one panacea where, oh goodness me, that one change just saved me $500 million. It doesn't work like that. It's generally a lot of small, smart things put together and they add up, So in the same way, a lot of small bad things add up too. So it's a matter of going through and reviewing and getting smart with what you do, and trying to look at better ways to do things to cut that cost off the bottom line. At the end of the day, you can do something about your costs. That's in your control. But the market, you influence the market through your production, but ultimately the market's the market. And you have to react to that, and you can't control it. So, very much for us, it's a case of efficiency, productivity, and getting those costs down.
So, in terms of you have been operating in Indonesia for 13 years, and you have seen a lot of coal mining companies. We're just talking about coal mining companies now.
Yes.
Operating the way they operate. In your general view, what are their weaknesses? Which part most of them can improve to achieve, let's say, resilience, adaptability to weakening market like where we are now?
I'm an old man, Pa, and I first came to Indonesia in May of 1993.
Oh, you've been here for?
No. Oh, no. I have not. I've been back and forward, and I've been here with RPM for about 1.5 years. I've worked up here independently in the past, and I was a general manager of a small gold mine back in '93, and I went up to Freeport. And what I saw in Freeport, which was Grasberg had just started, been going in May '93, been going for maybe, I don't know, the year, that year '93, wasn't very deep. And I listened to the Freeport representatives, and this is tough work in Indonesia, that's what they were sort of saying. I've worked in Oktedi in Papua New Guinea, and so I've experienced, when I've worked around the world in Africa, I've experienced the cultures and the difficulties. And all I can say now is wind that on 30 years, and this country has absolutely some really impressive professionals, and it really has some world-class assets. It really does. And a lot of the professionals in this country, when the mining boom came, 2006, 7, 8, 8 probably wasn't a great year, but 9 and 10 in times there was really good years in there. a lot of those guys, a lot of the Indonesians that are currently running operations and are in very senior technical roles, have probably had the benefit of working in places like Australia and getting out and getting international experience, which, you know, in the early 90s, you'd never think they would get. Yep. So I really believe that, you know, in Indonesia can teach a lot of other countries how to do their business. There's no doubt about that. There's strong, really strong assets and strong people. But like everybody, everyone can always learn. But I just wanted to say that because I don't see Indonesia as being, you know, anything other than a very strong, nationally strong mining country. You know, it's got lots of professionals that have got a lot of experience and some assets that, you know, the rest of the world would kill for. You know, they've got some really fantastic assets. It's not just Freeport. There's the coal mining provinces throughout Kalimantan and you know, Sumatra. You know, a world class. There's some difficult assets there too. So I suppose that's the starter of the answer. Is that firstly, I don't see things as being all bad. I see that there's a lot of good assets here, but the thing that isn't good at the moment is that coal price and is the perception of coal. So it comes back to, again, being lean, being nimble, being able to react quickly, is to have, from our perspective, of course, we think of that digital mine because that's, you know, that's what our business is about, is integrating the digital mine to help companies link all their data, be able to you know, do their fleet estimations and figure out how to minimise their fleet requirements, do good schedules that optimise value, you know, and of course to manage their assets, their mobile mining assets or fixed plant assets to the minimum cost. So we sort of get in that game and to get it all talking. So that for me is where things can certainly improve. But it's one thing to be able to have the software to do it, but you also need the hardware to do it. You know, you need to be working and adapting to change, and be ready to adapt to change, to be willing to spend money.
Tim, probably if you're talking about digitalization of mining data and everything, if you're talking about the likes of Adaro, Kideko and everything, they probably, I'm sure that they've been doing exactly what that. But what about smaller miners? Have they been adhering to the digitalization of their data and everything in their operation? And how do you think digitalization will help them to improve their efficiency?
I do think smaller miners is a different case. I think that, you know, from our experience at RPM Global, and certainly mine while I've been in Indonesia, has been supporting, you know, the bigger coal mining companies. It's been supporting Adaro and Kideko and certainly mine. So my personal experience in this country with RPM, with the coal mining, is very much a place where our software fits. Whether they run our software or not is another thing. Some of them do and some of them don't. Some of them just use our advisory service and are looking at our software. But of course, you know, software is not necessarily cheap, and certainly enterprise software like we have is not cheap compared to one-off modules of software products. So small companies are always going to have difficulty justifying the capital that's required to buy those sort of products. And if I was a general manager and someone came to me and I was a small company trying to get up and running into production, you know, it'd be very politely, let's make this work first and get some cash, and then let's get the thing going, and then let's see how we can improve value and demonstrate to me that it can work. So I do think, you know, personally, I believe there's a bit of a two-stage approach in there for the small guys. I believe for them, survival is the most important thing, and that's cash flow. So they need to be making money. They need to get their project up and going, and then look at how they develop their mine plans and things like that later. And those sort of guys are the sort of guys that will come to RPM Global in the first instance to help them with their planning, because they're small and they're growing. So often earlier on in their structure or their corporate journey, they won't have that expertise, and so we'll be consulting for them, providing them with their mining solution, and then helping them to start taking ownership with that as they grow. And then we won't see them again, except if they do require something specific. But our role will be to help them grow their people and their own staff so they can do that job. So generally the small guys will come to us up front to a degree and get our services to give them initial guidance. But I would, in all honesty, it's very difficult for the small guys to be able to go with that, those enterprise approaches and those big pieces of software. And most general managers, I believe, are probably, have got an ear open to it and understand it, but they have high priorities at depending on the journey that the mine's in at that point in time. Certainly, in a past life, I did a lot of work on Tuja Bukit with Bumi Success Indo around before and around the time of Merdeka Copper and Gold, and they certainly in development of that mine, it was using consultants and the consultants bringing their expertise to run software packages to provide BSI with the best, the best results for mine design, scheduling, etc. And Bumi's got a lot of wealth and backing, and still companies like that with that wealth are still very reluctant to go and spend a lot of money on software systems too early.
So from what you have just said, can I conclude that the software is some smaller companies mostly cannot afford?
Look, some of our bigger pieces of software, it's not that they can't afford it. It's that they probably can't justify it, depending on a part of the cycle. But depending on what it is, we run software packages like Talpack, and Talpack's been around for a long time. And we've just released a new version of Talpack 3D, which sort of merges the old Talpack, which is a simple fleet estimation tool, and it merges it more now with Haul Sim. Now those packages are relatively cheap, so it just depends on what a client's specific need is. I mean, not everyone needs all of our software products, and there's lots of software products on the market that our software integrates into. We've learned we're not the only software player in the industry. Yeah. So our software doesn't just hook into RPM Global software. We cater for everything. We try to make, we use global protocols so that we can manufacture software linkages to other vendors' software. So these groups, they might need a Talpack. If they're actually thinking that they want to start bridging across and doing some large-scale mine planning and enterprise work, then they're at that level where they're seeing a benefit, where they know it's going to cost a bit of money. But these things are not exorbitant in price.
For example, like this, Tim, I have information that a number of South Sumatran coal miners, because of the existence of the access road and railway road now, are planning to expand their capacity, let's say from 1 million ton to 3 million tons. Is it time for you, do you think, for those kind of companies started to think about using software to develop or to make their operation efficient?
Oh, if someone's thinking of expanding like that, then they certainly should be, even if they're not buying software, they should be engaging consultants to at least look at some strategic expansion options, so that they can make sure that their expansion of the mine is efficient, so that it can lead to the rail is just a rail, or it doesn't care where the material comes from as long as it's coming from somewhere. So ultimately, it's a matter of how do you get it there, where from, what's the schedule, how to get it there most cheaply, and that's where it can be done through software or consulting services.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't, I mean, that's what we do, Pa. We sell software to clients who have a specific need, and a lot of those are medium to long term. In this country, they're in Indonesia, they're medium to long term life mines. In Australia, we sell our OPMS, which is again expac solution software, into medium life metals companies that aren't necessarily super long life companies or with assets like Adaro or Bayern etc., or Kidiko with tens of years. They're less, but they recognise that it doesn't take much benefit to pay for the software. It's quite an easy justification. But we can consult our services using our own software and go on a consulting basis to provide solutions for a client.
Okay. So clients
there's
don't necessarily need to use your software. You can use it on consultancy or advisory.
Oh, of course we can. Yes, of course we can.
Okay.
Yeah, no. We're after helping our clients, and I would say that certainly for the smaller and medium-sized groups, they would would much rather prefer us to provide a consulting service than actually buying software. And because they're small and medium, they're growing. They're growing in their thinking. They're growing in their skills base. They don't want to go and spend money on software. They need solutions.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So in general, view, Tim, do you see Indonesian coal miners are already operating as efficiently as coal miners should be?
Oh, look, is anyone in this world perfect? And the answer is no, and everyone knows that. We've all got room to improve, don't we? We're human. We've all got room to improve.
I mean, you've been operating globally, and then I want to see where Indonesian coal miners are in terms of.
So as I said before, Alex, we're doing some work with Petromindo at the moment, and what Petromindo are looking at doing is they've bought our steeply dipping seams, open cut coal solutions, and open cut coal solutions is about like dozer push and more strip mining. Like you can use it for dragline simulations. Steeply dipping seams is more the typical really steep multitude of seams that some of the operations have here, hundreds of steep seams. And there's also OPMS, which is our open pit metal solution. So they're all part of that expac family of scheduling. So we're delivering that into Petromindo, so they can use it regardless of the type of coal mine or whether it's a metals mine. We're also introducing to them Execute, which links into the expac schedules, but it only looks at like the first maybe 4 or 8 weeks. You can pick the time frame, but ultimately it's to provide you with production surety. So you take that mid-long-term schedule and you analyse and report against it. So it's really used by operational people to make sure that to help you deliver, what you deliver the plan. And that's really what that's about. And also they're looking at using some of our other software pieces as well. Now, the reason they're doing that is because they, like Burma and like a lot of other mining consulting groups, they're really savvy. They're trying to drop their pricing right down. Okay, so from a contracting point of view, they know that whether they think they're perfect or not, they know that they need to make improvement. So they're striving for improvement. In the same way, we do some work with Bayern Resources right now. And, we've worked with Bayern for quite a few years. And, the typical work with Bayern is they've got, 13 or so concessions in Kalimantan, in the Tabang, North Paca, and Paca South, and South Paca areas. It's about 13 concessions there, and you know, they're not all in those areas, but there's a couple of other ones as well. And they're looking, you know, they update their resource reserves as they bring on new concessions. You know, they need to do. You know, we did help them with some PFSs that they did. Did some very good PFSs a year or two ago now. And so that's our general work with them, is just to upgrade because they've got long life. But now they're getting to a point where they're starting to really challenge what they're doing in their business as an owner, and they're starting to look at, you know, okay, they've got high cost, you know, diesel power. So what can we do there to generate low cost power? You know, which is potential power station type thing. And of course, if they bring that into play, the traditional truck and shovel, which Indonesia does so very, very well, you know, it's still expensive. There's a lot of expensive diesel. What can thermal coal assets owned by Bayern do to generate low cost thermal coal power, thermal coal electricity? And if we can use that in the, you know, if they can use that in different technologies, and try to, you know, maybe reduce the amount of reliance on truck and shovel. It'll always be there as a prime, but if they can do other things that are more electrically based and minimise that diesel, then they're going to save money.
Okay.
And so they're starting to look at various options now, and we're assisting them to look at the future. You know, what does the future look like? Is it truck and shovel entirely, or is it a combination of truck and shovel with feeding some other mining method system that's you know, that has a lower cost price?
Okay.
You know, clearly you say, I don't want truck and shovel anymore, I want something cheaper. Well, you've got to be careful, because truck and shovel gives you, you know, the most extreme flexibility. Yes. And you know, mining's uncertain, so flexibility is your friend. But flexibility comes at a price. So look, they're the sorts of things that companies are doing. They're not sitting back. Some maybe are. Some have maybe forced to sit back a little bit and just stabilise. Particularly now, it's tough. So it is a time for hunkering down and you know, keeping the spend low and just trying to, you know, for a lot of groups, survive, I suppose. But those with long lives and with a vision, I'm sure lots of companies are out there looking at how they can cement their security into the future, and how do they do that?
And it's especially so during this time of pandemic, where everything has to be more efficient, right?
Oh yeah, well, I think it needs to be efficient all the time. In all honesty, you know, in my experience over the years in Australia and in other parts of the world, I've worked in some pretty big mines, you know, and I've worked in some pretty big mines in really good times. And it's really interesting how when times are good, the money starts flowing, but the cycle changes, and then all of a sudden it's really tight. And you know, and spending money, you know, I wouldn't want to say that that's like waste, but I mean, some of it's a reward to employees who have done good work, and that's great. But people do tend to spend more money when there's more money out there, and they tend to and that's in their home as well as in their mind. And you know, I think the key for coal is to really try to get to a workable level where everyone's comfortable, everyone's feeling good, but the purse strings are reasonably well controlled, so that you don't go crazy during the good times, and yes. and the bad times, it's just normal business and hunkering down and keeping you know, tight. And I think that's whether there's a pandemic or not. A pandemic now just makes it really worse, because there's the safety issues for your personnel. Obviously, there's the HR issues. I mean, I know some mines, some personnel are being caught on the mine for, you know, you've been at home for 5 months. I was at home for about 3. You know, we're still working. We're in Bintaro, so we're in the Tangerang precinct, and we've been on 50-50 for a while now. So we still work from home, half of us. We've got, as I said, about 20 in the office, so it works okay. But gee, some people on some of the coal mining sites, they were there for months. And some people who were meant to be rostered on, well, I don't know what happened to them. I mean, obviously, they're still in Jakarta or home or whatever. So it's been some very, very big challenges for the producing companies, and no doubt some big challenges for their personnel too.
Okay, Tim. Now that we've covering coal industry, let's move to nickel, which is also going to be Indonesia's next big thing, because Indonesia is going to be the largest nickel producer in the world.
Yep.
What do you think is going on in Indonesian nickel industry? Are they going to be as big as thermal coal industry is? And I have heard a number of sources that said that with the going rate, the nickel ore will only last for like 7 or 8 years. What do you think about that?
I think 7 or 8 years. Firstly, let me put my disclaimer in, Alex. I'm not an expert in nickel in this country. I've done a lot of nickel work in sulfides in Australia, particularly with Western Mining and BHP Nickel West. I have a lot of experience in Western Australia on some of their big assets. I've helped them over the years and learned a lot from them. Nickel laterites, my Australian experience is Murrin. I did a fair bit of work early on with that. But in Indonesia, I am less certain. 7 or 8 years to me is low. I mean, I'm sure that the life is a lot higher than that. We have one client at the moment who I don't think I can name because I haven't talked to them about this. The others I'm naming have generally given the okay, but they're looking at basically doing a little bit of a divestment away and looking at strategically just diversifying, and they're looking at diversifying from part of their thermal coal and getting into a little bit of nickel laterite. And they're looking at some assets at the moment, and we're talking hundreds of millions of tons. So there's a lot of nickel out there. It's generally reasonably shallow. This asset be less than 20 meters in depth. It's going to go for a lot more than 7 or 8 years. I know Nekotambang's got some stuff there on Halmahera. There's all sorts of players out there. It sounds to me, and I don't know that much about it, but it sounds to me like it's big. It sounds like it's big.
It is big if you put the low what do you call below 1.7% ore into the calculation.
Yeah.
So what do you think is going on with Indonesian nickel industry?
I don't know that much about the nickel industry in Indonesia. I know that there's definitely a lot of movement. We certainly are looking at, we do a fair few resources for some of the small players. There's lots of people looking at buying in. There's activity happening. People looking at small things, people looking at large things. Nickel is a very volatile metal. I've had maybe 8 or 9 years experience in nickel sulfides, and I remember doing one job, and the price was about $2.50 a pound, which was enough to basically make something sort of break even. And within the first month of starting this job, I thought I probably don't have a job anymore because I was contracting, and within 2 months it had jumped up and it was over $4. And just out of nowhere, it's a very, very, very volatile metal. Conversely, when it detracts and goes bad, it happens very quickly as well. So it can happen quickly. So again, from my perspective, not knowing too much about nickel, though it's to me it's like a frontier that's really starting to open up, and particularly with a lot of the new processing technologies, a lot of what I gather are shared process, the vision of shared processing assets amongst adjacent concessions and things like that,
Yes.
so that everyone can get the benefit of scale, which makes a lot of sense. Um, you know, I think that all mining, but nickel as well, the same adage that we see for coal, where we've got to be tight and, you know, let's not say lean. Lean is sort of implying that things our costs are too low and we're foregoing things. But we've got to get to a comfortable low operating level. And the nickel assets are going to have to do the same. When the nickel price is high, they will be printing cash like you can't believe, but it can quickly turn off, and then they'll get into the point where they need to survive as well. So
it's even more so than coal, right? Because of the fluctuation is very high, volatile, very volatile.
well, if they're I remember in Australia, BHP bought Western Mining, and they, you know, this was maybe, oh gee, when was this? Maybe 2000. Let's call it 2004, 2005. It was somewhere around there, and they bought Western Mining purely for the Olympic Dam underground copper uranium asset. The view of Western Mining's nickel assets was that they would get sold off. But the timing of that purchase was such that the nickel price was extremely high. So BHP, rather than selling off Nickel West, it actually just printed money, and it printed so much money that asset just kept on making. It was a cash cow for them. It was a huge bonus. But of course, by the time the market downturned, and that few years went by and the market downturned, then they had this huge asset with a refinery and a smelter in Kwinana, refinery south of near Kambalda, and a refinery in Kwinana, plus their Mount Keith and Leinster assets and other assets around Kambalda. They were so big they couldn't find anyone to buy them. The price was low. They weren't making any money. They didn't want the thing. I think things have turned around now, and they've had some good discoveries, but they've had some wins. It's been the example is only to say that the timing of everything is everything. You know, where you sit in the marketplace, you can have the best mind and the best thinking, but if you come in and enter at the wrong time, you can be in strife. You know, or you can have an asset that's not that good, but if you enter in the right time, wow, it's going to look potentially very, very good, and you made a good decision. So the market, which we can't control, often is what defines us.
Okay, I think a last question, Tim. What is your strategy in the short term in Indonesia? I mean, what else are you going to do to increase your portfolio and everything in Indonesia?
Well, we're as I've mentioned, Alex, we're largely a coal-based consulting firm in our Indonesian presence, but we are equally coal and metals as you look at us around the world. So one of the things we want to do is and particularly, you know, you've just mentioned the nickel potential that's in this country. You know, we want to be able to assist companies with that. So one of the things we are looking at doing is growing our metals presence, and you know, in the short term, it's about winning. It's about winning work and demonstrating that we can do good work, and having that supported by our existing metals experience, which is largely in Australia, also a little bit in North America, but the different time zone North America. So, you know, we tend not to use it that much. So really, that's where we're looking at doing. We're looking at trying to grow our metal side, maintain our coal side. We have released, you know, in the last couple of years, and we always are doing a lot of work on our software products. So, you know, we're getting more and more used to all our changes in our software, all the new advancements that we have, and we do internal training. So we're making sure that not only can our consulting advisory personnel, you know, use the software to do our studies for clients, but also can step across to the, you know, the Petroseas of the world and who have our software and help assist them. So we're trying to look at our skilled professionals and trying to find more avenues within our existing workfront base so that we can get higher utilization out of our people. Ultimately, for us, it's a game of selling. We either sell our software, and our software sales are through Australia, or we sell, our expertise measured in time, or measured as a lump sum cost to produce an outcome for a client. So what we've got to do, we're like the coal mining companies. We've got to get smarter with the way we do our business, so that we can have higher margins as well and secure our future. Coal clearly has been very, very good to us, and we need it to remain so. We need to keep good service going and maintain our relationships very, very well. And we need to be out there growing more relationships. And I think that's the way now, is that relationships with companies is just supreme.
One more thing, but Tim, from the three services that you offer, advisory, software, and training, can you give which one is the biggest revenue driver?
We are a software company now, Alex, on the ASX 500.
No, I mean in your
in Indonesia. Look, in Indonesia, it's probably about 50-50. We did actually last year we had that sale with Petromindo, which meant that software would be higher than our consulting and advisory.
So 50 training is not that significant. Eh?
Training at the moment, training in Indonesia, we haven't done any training here actually for a while, and it's an opportunity I've got to get into. Now when I say we haven't done any training in a while, it's not true. We have had some specific client requests. Our training headquarters is actually in Brisbane, but we facilitate on-site training. But training has not been given the love that as the other two branches are. Consulting advisory has the most people, and it's actually those consulting advisory people that would deliver the training. So if you know what I mean, we're keeping those guys busy, and sometimes training, unfortunately, sort of gets a little bit forgotten about. But it's there, and it's something we've got to, in this country market, I've got to start doing a better job of getting out there. I mean, our training people are out there doing it, but of late, I think the amount we've done has been a few miners for non-miners. I don't think we've done any technical training in Indonesia for a little bit of time.
So it's
but
fair
certainly
to
around the world, we do a lot.
Oh yeah. So it's fair to say that your revenue is 50-50 from advisory and consulting and from software in Indonesia.
In Indonesia at the moment, yes, it is. And I think, though, because of some of because this sale into Petrosi and a contract to support them for a while, over a year, and to get the various software pieces and do the training for them as well. So it's a lot of collaboration with them. That's actually got the potential to really assist our sales up in Indonesia. If we do a good job, of course, we'll be judged by what we do, and we won't do a bad job. So if we do a good job there, when we do that, I'm really hoping that becomes a showcase for our software and for the way we do our business. And that will actually could help us to grow the software sales side into a larger portion.
So now that you've mentioned Petrosi, do you also work with any other mining contractors currently?
Look, I'm just trying to think. Look, we do have a history with other contractors. I haven't been in country all that long, so in terms of the last year and a half, we haven't. But some of our staff are ex-contractors, and we maintain good relationships with not just Petroseas, but with gee, who else is there out there? There's Boomi, and I'm trying to think. Gee, I've got a mental block now, but certainly the group that are down on the outer toll there starts with M. I've just got a mental blank. Pa Indra, they did the BSI contract. We have a we still talk to these groups. They actually run AMT. So a lot of these mining contractors actually use AMT as Matt Harney was the group I couldn't think of before. But AMT is used by a lot of the contractors for their asset management. So we do have that relationship with the mining contractors.
Your software advisory service is, you are also targeting coal mining contractors. That's aside from coal miners.
No, Matt Harney very much. They were doing Tuja Bukit until Tuja Bukit went and did owner operation. So that's gold. And Madhani, Madhani are a good sized contractor who I'd say probably, and I don't quite know, but my guess would be that they're probably more metals oriented. They were doing, I'm sure they were on Wetar Island with the Merdeka Copper and Gold Group. I think they got a bit of work out of Merdeka Copper and Gold because there was a time there, and it still are. They're a good contractor, and they were fitting into a niche there with those sort of good size metals operations. So I wouldn't see personally. Madhani might not like what I'm saying, and I apologise if I'm saying it incorrectly, but my view of Madhani is that they are more a metals-based contractor.
Okay. Anything else, Tim? Want to add?
No. Just to say thank you very much for the opportunity. Good to meet you, and good to have a chat today. And look, from RPM Global, thanks to Petromindo for this opportunity, and it's been great.
Likewise, but Tim, probably we will also, from time to time, Coal Asia Petromindo will be hosting webinars on various subjects. And one of the things that I think will be interesting is increasing the agility in bad times like this. Probably, if you're interested, we can ask you to participate as one of the speakers later.
Well, that'd be my pleasure, Pak. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak. Thank you very much. A good day, Ibu Novi. Terima kasih udah mengarrange interviewnya. And stay healthy and stay safe.
You too, Pa. But try to get out. You need to get out safely.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it often.
Oh, it's hard. As I said, I went down to Bali. Bali was really quiet. It was not Bali, I suppose.
Actually, it's not going to Bali that I'm afraid. The process of going to the airport and everything. Those are the risks where the risks are, in my opinion.
Not the risk.
Yeah, but anyway, I'll think about it. I cannot stay at home.
Well, I just found it really mentally challenging. I mean, I live in an apartment. I live by myself, and it's really. It's hard. Working from home is, if you've got a family, firstly, you're intruding on your wife's domain and probably your kid's domain as well, right? So that's the first thing. So that's the first thing. I used to run my own company in Australia, and I used to, if I wasn't on a site or if I wasn't in a head office of my client, I had an office at home.
Okay.
And I can remember. Like in the first week of the very first job where I was working from home, and in the outside room, my wife's got the vacuum cleaner on, and I'm saying to her, "Hey, darling, this is an office. What are you doing? You can't vac while I'm trying to work. You know what I mean? You're intruding on someone else's domain."
Yeah.
And everyone's got to adjust. But like for me, I don't have to worry about that at all. But the domain is that it's just me, and when you can walk 10 feet to the office from your bed and walk 5 feet to the shower, you know, and you keep on doing that, it's not healthy. You know, we're creatures are designed to interact, you know, and interaction is what this pandemic is all about, what we need to avoid, of course, but I found it really mentally challenging. That's why I just had to, I thought if I looked at Bali and I thought, well, the cases is pretty low there and Jogja looks pretty low, and just manage it with sanitize, hand sanitizer, mask. Airlines, I flew Garuda, they were very, very good. You know, you get your rapid test and you know, you've got to manage up people a little bit because, you know, the plane comes to a halt and everyone's sprinting up to get out of the plane and all the social distance just goes to pot, you know, it just disappears. So you've got to be a bit careful. But for me, you know, I wouldn't be in a healthy place if I hadn't have got out and just got away a little bit. And Borobudur was just amazing, really fantastic, really good. Take care, Pa.
Okay, Pak Tim, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Take care. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.